In our case, generational wealth in terms of gold, many times people who own gold might not have children who understood what gold is and what it represents. And when we buy, sell, trade gold, what about passing down our gold? How do we pass down to our next generation?
Hello again, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Silver Bullion Television, SBTV. I'm your host, Patrick Vieira, part of the outreach team of Silver Bullion here in Singapore, where we want to help you truly secure your wealth. David Lee joins us today. David is a generational wealth expert in Singapore, and he is a senior associate director, an estate and succession planner, as well as a certified financial planner. And we're delighted to have David join us here as a first time guest. It's time to saddle up and silver up for David Lee. David, welcome to SBTV. How are you doing?
Hi, Patrick. I'm doing well.
Glad to have you as a first time guest. Glad to have you on. I just want to clear something up that let's have it known that nothing in this interview should be considered financial advice, and we are simply understanding what people are doing when it comes to building or holding or diversifying a portfolio and its assets. So, having said that, David, I want to start off, if you could, by giving us a bit of a background about yourself.
Great. So I'm David, and I'm an expert in building generational wealth for senior level executives, business owners, entrepreneurs, and I'm based in Singapore.
All right. So, just to share, a few months back, David walked into our shop at Silver Bullion, and we had a pretty long discussion on precious metals, the economy, the state of things, and it all led to wealth preservation, generational wealth. So, with that as the premise, I'd like to include all of you into that chat we had and into the mind of a generational wealth expert. David, who typically seeks your services? And I mean the demographic of who seeks your services.
Okay, so people who approach me are usually C-level executives or senior level directors, and also entrepreneurs, businessmen who wants to build it well and strong fundamentally, and also creating legacies for them that will last for generations. My group of clients understands the importance that uh, of having wealth, but at the same time, by not managing or responsibly understanding what money is, by working for it and things like this, right? Yeah, next generation might suffer or might not appreciate wealth as much as they do. So this is where I come to help them to take care of their family.
When you look at the future, the financial landscape, how much do geopolitical tensions, a waning world reserve currency, organizations pushing agendas that'll change the way we work, we eat, we travel, we live. I mean, what kind of outlook do you see? Perhaps world do you see, and then how does this factor into people when they come to talk to you about either building or protecting their wealth?
Okay, very good question. You're tapping into my wisdom here. So I think all of us who watch this channel, we are very aware that since 1970s, right, where the gold was unpacked from the dollar, what happens, I see this trend, and I believe most of you seen it as well, is that in the past, my grandparents has no issues having 10 kids, 12 kids, right? They can still feed everyone on table, everyone is happy. But the depack of unpack of the dollar out of gold causes massive inflation, right? House prices become unaffordable. People having nowadays two kids and they are suffering financially, they are feeling the burden. And if this continues to go on, whatever that's happening out there in the world, where the rich get much richer, right, and the poor suffers, and we sandwich middle class, got to maneuver ourselves out of it. And it takes proper planning for most of us to get out of this. At the same time, for those of us who have already done it, how do we ensure that our next generation continues to build on the foundation? rather than let it collapse. And then, for example, getting a house is not as easy right now, right? But if you do proper planning, right, your next generation can build on the success that you already have and at least secure to them simple things like healthcare, education, and a home to live. Yeah, so moving forward, the challenges is going to be there as long as the trajectory of the Federal Reserve central banks are going to stay that way. Yeah, so it becomes increasingly important for us to be educated about how to properly pass down our legacies.
Let's say when they first meet you and come into your office, do you sense do you sense sort of a concern or maybe fear or uncertainty that your clients have, or do they come in, with just a very positive outlook and they just really want to grow, things for their generations, or but again, do they have that sense of concern?
I would say education is important. So channels like yours, we are educated, but most people who are busy, senior level executives, entrepreneurs, they are busy making money, right? They're busy building their wealth. I don't see them coming in more of a fearful thing or a hopeful thing either. But most of them, I think all of us in us, we see the importance of taking care of our family. So most of them comes from this perspective, right? Where they want to make sure that number one, I would ask a simple question you can ask yourself with the wealth that you have, right? Are you okay if your kids at 21 years old become a sudden millionaire? If you have that wealth, right? Or maybe insurance or gold that you are buying, right? It will leave behind. Suddenly they have that. Even let's not talk about millionaires. Some people with a few five figure, six figure, they will also misuse it, right? Right. So how do we make sure that our families are well taken care of? So that's their main concerns when they speak to me about. And the next thing is also on how to preserve their wealth, right? Many times, people are good at making money, they tend to have less time to take care of their wealth. So they outsource and consult people like myself who understands their family situation, listens to them, and plan something that will help them to build their wealth and last for generations.
Yeah, David, that's a great answer. I mean, I appreciate that answer because I think most of us here, we're running around, looking at the world and trying to, prevent this or protect that, and trying to understand it all, and there's a lot that builds up, and you basically came and just said something that think about the family. Think about your family and take care of your family. I mean, the world's going to do what the world's going to do, but let's do what we can do for our family. And so I really do appreciate that. When it comes to, let's say, estate planning, are precious metals, say gold and silver, part of the planning?
So most people are not aware. So it takes education, some sharing of stories, right? I would say precious metals, people understand the importance of it. When I mention it, people are well aware, but most of the time they do not know how to pass it down, right? Number one, how do I uh, pass it down? Number two is where do I purchase? Where do I store large amounts of gold, silver, right? Singapore is relatively safe, but again, low crime doesn't mean no crime, and we don't know what the future holds. So yeah, those are the two main things. When they are aware of such things, then they will consider having precious metals. So for example, a like people leave behind art pieces, luxury watches, right? So, and also some gold jewelry, right? So, but having gold bullion on itself, I believe is mostly viewers, including myself, that we are more well aware. So, yeah, I'm there to give them an alternative, yeah, during our consultation.
If you're enjoying this interview with David Lee and I, please consider subscribing to our YouTube channel. And did you know that at Silver Bullion, we have 6 different types of accounts to fit your needs? To find out more, go to www.silverbullion.com.sg. Click on the Signups tab and choose the account that best fits your need. Or you can always email me, Patrick at silverbullion.com.sg, and I'll help get you started. Demographics that come to you, um, Gen X, Gen Z parents, a retired person, a business owner. What would you say are some of the things that they have in common? I mean, a common denominator across all demographics, if any.
Okay, so just now you mentioned estate planning, right? Estate planning is simply preparing money or wealth for the people that we love, right? But I believe in the aspect of legacy planning, where we prepare the people that we love for the money we will leave behind. So the common denominator is usually the love for their family, right? So they don't want to just simply, if we do not plan, right? So number one, if we don't plan, it will just be given based on the Interstate Act by each individual countries, where either 50% to your spouse, 50% to your children, and it's split equally, right? And sometimes the most unfair thing to do is to give unequal people equal share. Do you understand what I mean? Yeah, recently I watched this show called The Gentleman in Netflix, where the Duke of uh, of Europe, right, actually UK, left behind the inheritance to the second son, and the first son was very appalled. And later, I mean, as viewers, we were appalled as well, but later we found out that the father did that for a reason. The father knew that the eldest son was into great debts, 8 million pounds of debts, into drugs and all this, and that's why he gave to the second son, who was an ex-military guy, and that second son actually helped the first son to get out of debt and created, a family harmony back again. So that's the key thing when people talk to me, when they look for me. In our case, generational wealth in terms of gold, many times people who own gold might not have children who understood what gold is and what it represents. And when we buy, sell, trade gold, what about passing down our gold? How do we pass down the baton properly to our next generation? So all these things are encompassed in a proper legacy plan, where you get to write down your wishes, write down your instructions. For example, storing my gold and silver at your preferred bullion store or silver bullion, right? And under what conditions they can take out the money, be it for buying house, education, or maybe for me, let me come to my story, right? So my mom passed away in 2018 due to cancer, and she left behind each of us, right, a Royal Canadian gold coin. She's a housewife, right? She doesn't have much, but because my dad is also in the industry, and he did a proper estate plan for my legacy planning for my mom, and everything was done spotlessly. We get what we're supposed to get, right? There's family harmony. In fact, we were just busy mourning about her. We don't have to worry about when to sell the assets, how to sell the assets, right? So I'm a big beneficiary of proper estate planning, which is why I advocate this. And also my mom gave this to me, and that kickstart my journey in understanding gold and how it can last for generations. Yeah.
Okay, no, it's a nice story. With you, there's three types of vehicles that stood out for me: a will, a trust, and a standby trust. Could you just take some time and explain what each does and the purpose of each?
Okay. So by default, if you do not write a will, what happens is that your country, the laws of governing your country will decide where the money goes, right? So if you do not want that to happen, number one, maybe the allocation is not to your preference, or number two, there are additional costs if you do not plan. The lawyers will charge additional fees each time they reach out to a financial institution to ask for your holdings in that company in Singapore. They charge about $150 to $200. So why let your money leak out, right? To just because you fail to do simple planning. And so to save costs, and the third one is for uh, ease and liquidity of money. If you do not do up a proper will, it takes years, 1 year, 2 years, to gather all your assets, gather the right beneficiaries to give to, and pass it back to them. So it's a very lengthy process. So by writing a simple will, right? So let's start number one. Simple will is to just indicate who your executor is and who are your beneficiaries are. For those who still have kids, who will be your guardian of the kids if both parents are not around, right? So you do it in percentages. However, but writing a simple will can be a bit difficult to pass down wealth that is fixed, pass down assets that are whole, like fixed assets, like a property. Financial assets are easy, cash are easy, right? But properties, businesses, how do you pass down in percentages, right? So, for example, there are rules governing the country in Singapore, like the number of properties that you own will affect the stamp duty and the taxes that you pay. So sometimes to avoid that from happening, they might want to maybe pass that property to a kid that doesn't own a property, and another kid they pass down other assets, cash or insurance proceeds. So this a simple will cannot do, where people will move on to an intermediate will or a more complicated will, right? So there's simple will and a complex will, right? So complex will you can write a bit more things where, for example, the property thing, or maybe I can say all my goal go to these two, the other kid don't get, or my business go to what. You can cut, you can divide. And so now your next question, right? What about trust? So trust, you can, there's two types of trust. One, trust simply means that when a person passed on, the money is not immediately passed down to the kids or their beneficiaries, right? Someone, the trustee will have to hold that asset until the right time and or condition happens. For example, if a trust would include things like instead of giving 100% of my assets when I let's say a person pass on and the kid has yet to achieve the age of 21 years old, right? Upon achieving 21 years old, the kid would inherit everything. So if parents don't want that coming from a simple will, they will then say that, okay, under certain conditions, for example, when the kid goes to university, you can then disperse X amount. When the kid is working, right, you can distribute X amount, maybe $1 for every $2 they make. Or you can simply do things like, uh, or when the kid gets married, you can give a love gift. So these are things that you can do under a conditional trust, right? Well, or another thing is that you can also continue to grow your trust money, right? So, like some people, instead of giving 100% to their family members, they keep maybe a certain amount or a larger amount where it continue to be invested or continue to stay as, let's say, their gold holdings continue to stay inside it. So, in the unlikely event that they're not around, their kids continue to hold it under the trust, and only upon certain conditions they can sell it. So make it very simple. It's like a family bank. A trust is like you creating your own family bank where in certain conditions they can borrow money, they can profit from it, right? So there's a whole big world out there of trust. So that's trust. What about standby trust, the last one that you asked, right? So standby trust is a type of trust that does not kick in yet until a person passes on. The conditions and all that is similar, but you do not pay the ongoing management fees, and the trust does not kick in until the person passed away. Yeah, so that kind of save costs. As converse to the earlier one, a living trust, most people would only do it if they are business owners. They want to hold certain assets to protect themselves from creditors, right? So let's say they go bankrupt, right? Creditors can't run after that living trust that they run off, that they accumulated. So all in all, a trust protects, leaves a good legacy. So I got brought up the first point, how it protect from creditors, divorce. Your ex-daughter-in-law will not inherit that money. Keep the money within the family. Protection, right? And number two is that ensure that your wealth goes to the right person at the right time with the right amount of money, bringing out the right values that you want to bring to your family. So protection and the part on legacy, where I'm very passionate about on generational wealth.
There's always that question, when a child hits 18, they're an adult. So, they want to claim whatever their inheritance might be. But do you find your clients saying maybe, don't release it to them until maybe they're 25 or 30 or, until they're married or whatever it might be?
Yeah. So I believe there's many stories that we've heard about and we've seen in the news, right? For example, a was it Whitney Houston, right? Her daughter inherited large amounts of money when she passed on, and a few years after she got involved with wrong group of friends and all that, and she passes on very soon, right? Due to bad decisions. So there are many times I believe in this thing called soul prosperity, right? Just like when in the Bible, you pray in all things that you prosper, just as your soul prosper. So it's like imagine your cup, right? You have this cup where your soul can contain the wealth that you built, right? So when you pour wealth in it, if it's the right size, you can then hold and contain it properly. But if your soul has not grown to the right size and suddenly so much money poured down to you, you probably break the vessel and things like this, right? So another analogy that I use is like a swimming pool. When we are building our wealth through the years, it's like building up a pool of water, right? And then when you pass on, literally the executor takes an axe to knock down that pool of water, right? And your family members are around the pool of water, immediately water just gushes out. And it could harm them or it could help them depending on how strong their roots are, how strong their soul is, their maturity is to receive that kind of wealth. So yeah, it is a real concern that people receive wealth too early. And I have a friend who is my similar age, and he inherited properties from his grandfather. So when he started, he don't even need to work, right? He would have monthly rental incomes from the property income that was generated. And a few years ago, at age 35, he just got into stroke. He's overweight, he gambles, he drinks, he plays around. So this is real negative effects of money. But at the same time, if that same amount of money you can create an education fund or an entrepreneurial fund where only under the conditions where your next generation is going to build a, a business or need funding for their business, they can tap into. So by doing that, you are empowering. You're telling them that, hey, there's money here. You need to do something, right? A business that can impact people, the community, and build up the helping the poor, the sick, and the widow and the orphans. Then you can get involved. You can get access to this money. This simple thing, right, would have made a great impact in the next generations. Don't you think so? Right? By a simple thing like this. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. But with the next generations, my concern is our generation, we understand gold, we understand silver, we scroll it away, we put it away, and then we're gonna pass it on to the next generation. But they may not really want the gold or silver. They may want to just sell it and take the cash. Right? You see that?
Yes, I think I had a great chat with your COO, right, Virgil. And one of the days when I chat with him, he told me, "Hey, David, the day before yesterday, someone just liquidated $5 million worth of bullion, right? Basically, a client passed, and the beneficiary just liquidated all the gold. And who knows what he do with it, right? He or she could buy a property, maybe, right? They could have done everything else. But you see, why did the father or the deceased even invested in the gold in the first place, right? Maybe he intends for gold to become 10,000 an ounce, right? Which some of us kind of hope for it. But right now at 2,000 plus, it prematurely liquidated all this wealth that the father intended for the whole family to have. if only the deceased father, did a proper legacy plan, right? He could, yeah, maybe he can liquidate 1 million, maybe, right? Just enough or certain amount, just a love gift to them. But at the same time, he could also keep maybe majority of that with its intended effects of lasting for generations. So it is very true. I think among my peers, not many people understand the power or that gold and silver has last through, I mean, since the biblical times, right? And despite dynasties in China, Asia come and go, different empires and different countries, the domination of different countries in the past was the British pound as the dominant currency. Before that, the Dutch, the Portuguese, but gold still stands, right? So if we want to leave a lasting legacy for generations to come, I personally would put a good 20% that into bullion that will just last for generations.
Yeah, that's a great point because we hear some guys saying 5%, some 10. I like your 20. 20 sounds good to me. But with gold and silver, it would you say it's one of the key blocks to building generational wealth?
Let's contrast it, right, with simply investing in stocks or bonds, right? So this is where most financial advisors focus their advice on, right? Companies comes and go, right? That's why recently people uh, invest in ETFs, right? They let the passive investing, they let the professionals and the index to determine where they are invested in because simply companies come and go. You keep into this stock that might be very good. For example, in the past, Nokia, right? If you're invested and you didn't rebalance and all that, you probably would have lost a substantial amount of money, right? So I think when people plan their generational wealth and wealth they're going to pass down, the mindset is very, very different from someone who just want to build their wealth for retirement. Yeah. Because at least, this timeline, this life uh, period is more predictable. But beyond that, it's very hard to predict, right? So they tend to be a bit more conservative. They tend to be more diversified, more widely diversified. And I believe having some precious metals or even certain assets, right? Like some of them leave some uh, luxury watch, art pieces, some family historical uh, uh, items, right? So these are things that could be passed down, but lies behind true legacy planning, where most estate plan only takes care of what to leave behind. If you have an ability or you have an advisor that can help you to do up a proper legacy plan, you can include your message as well, not just leaving behind money. You see, maybe a simple question is, do you remember your grandfather's name? Do you know your grandfather's name? Most people might not know, right? What about your great grandfather? The thing is that why, right? What if your grandfather left a certain message for all his grandchildren, or your great grandfather left message for the great grandchildren at age of 21, right? How do you pass down message effectively through a proper legacy plan, telling them either life, your values, right, the mindset that you have, share a bit about yourself, maybe a bit about why you hold to your goal for so many years, right? And yeah, basically pass down proper legacies. I always tell people that the lowest form of gift that we can give to our next generation is money. Think about that, right? The lowest form that we can give our next generation is money. Because money is just money, right? But how you use money, but how do you be productive people in the society? Like Grant Cardone said, right? He hopes that his children become productive members of the society. Then they will be happy, right? So how do we create certain uh, boundaries, conditions? So on my side, I help my clients to create 21 conditions that they can help their clients, help their family to sustain and preserve and build wealth, and 7 things how they can protect wealth. For example, divorce, bankruptcy, things like this. These are 2 examples. Then the 21 examples are conditional examples like, okay, to encourage productivity, when you make $100,000 a year, like a different tier, right? You can do that. Okay, I'll match up maybe 50% of that or 20% of that, right? Or maybe you can say things like I've recently watched Patrick Bet David, that he enjoys having big family gatherings in Christmas, and they would go around. But how does he ensure that his next generation do that? Will they have the similar wealth that he have? If not, then can he create an annual family Christmas gathering event funded by his family trust, right? Where he brings all the family members together. So these are things that you can do. It's a very powerful tool where families, if you can envision it, you have someone who who is an expert and a thought leader in this, right? It can open up possibilities like this. So money is the lowest form, and then you will realize that money is really the lowest form of gift for your next generation. Yeah,
That's a great point, David. I never saw it that way. When you mentioned the word conditions, I think there may be people out there thinking, what condition do I need to meet before I can really approach someone to talk about wealth protection?
great question, right? So many times people uh only think that they have to be very rich to create a legacy plan, right? Wealthy in a way. But may I propose that is not totally true? Because wealth, I believe, is not only in the form of dollars and cents, right? Wealth, your knowledge, your wisdom, your health, how you take care of your body, right? This, your the state of your mind. I believe these are wealth. These are things that money can't buy, right? And if that person has wealth, dollars and cents, and beyond that, right? Not just dollars and cents, but also all this wealth. I believe they should, if they see value in passing down true wealth and legacy, they should start their own legacy plan. Because maybe this round they are not as rich as they want to be, but their next generation, but with their help, they can propel their kids, their grandkids, or great grandkids to be very important, very uh, movers of the world, right? Of the communities. And a standby trust is honestly not very expensive. In Singapore, it's less than 10,000 Singapore dollars, right? It's less than that, right? In the mid to high four figures. And then there's no fees until the person passes on, right? And then for every million, in there's a tier. The highest is zero point 0.5, but as your wealth goes up, it goes down to 0.4% of your wealth, zero point 0.3, zero point 0.2, and you can discuss the fees later. So many times, for example, a person with $1 million, right, you is about 0.5%, so it's about $5,000. All right. So but when you put that $1 million inside the trust, assuming no other properties, just cash, right? You can simply put in a money market fund. Currently, money market fund generates 4-5% in US dollar, right? In Singapore, it's about 3 to 4%. What is 0.5, right? That 1 million would have generated, uh, 1 million would generated about 30K, 40, 50,000, but the fees is only 5,000. So net, you are making money, right? And then from this 1 million, instead of giving them lump sum, you create a family bank where you give in certain life stages, important events, or you can simply say, each family can loan 100,000, 200,000 to buy their first property, interest free. There's a Bible saying that right, the rich rule over the poor, the borrower is a slave to the lender, right? So why borrow from the bank if you can give loans to your next generation at 0% interest? Imagine your grandfather gave this facility to you, right? Just imagine that, right? Yeah, you would be so much less burdened by the situations surrounding the world, and you can really chase your dreams. So that's what true legacy planning gives.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it because we often talk about being your own bank. So I think hopefully we're starting to open up a bit to really find ways that we can be our own bank. And again, I thank you for how you brought up that point where, you know, the world is basically going to do what the world is going to do, but we can do something for our family and for our generation. So that's something else to consider. But having said these things, David, your business, do you also are you open to people from different countries outside of Singapore?
Yeah, we work closely with Silver Bullion to create something that is relevant for the people in the region, right? And also customers of Silver Bullion can find out more, which we will share a bit more in due time, to how to ensure your goal and your generational wealth is passed down properly and not sold prematurely. Yeah, so yeah, do find out more. I believe we will release more information as the details are coming out. And I look forward to meeting some of you in person or over Zoom, right, one day to talk about how you want to build your generational wealth. And yeah, that's great. Thanks for the time. Thanks for the question. I like that.
Yeah, thank you. Also, look forward to meeting you again. But is there any way, let's say, do you have an email or some way where people can contact you?
Yeah, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. Just search for David Joshua Lee, and my LinkedIn is called the David Joshua. I also have a YouTube channel that I'm building to educate people more about generational wealth and helping people to open up possibilities in their mind, what they can create, you see, with their legacy. And you can follow me on YouTube and LinkedIn, where I believe it will be helpful if you put a link down below, or maybe I can comment as well. Yeah. One thing that I would like to add, which is something that is very close to my heart, is this Bible verse that says, Proverbs 13, verse 22, a good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children. And another one that I really uh, think is very applicable to this part on legacy planning. In fact, the Bible has spelled it out so clearly, right? In Galatians chapter 4, verses 1 to 2, it says that what I am saying is that as long as an heir is under age, he is no different from a slave, although he owns the whole estate. The heir is subject to guardians and trustees until the time set by his father. So it's exactly like what I shared just now on legacy planning, that until the child is of the right age and maturity, then even though he own the whole estate, he should be still subjected to guardians and trustees, in this case, a good legacy plan with trustees, right? Until the time set by his father. All in all, I would summarize in this way what legacy planning is to give to the right person the right amount of money at the right time, leaving behind the right set of values that you want to leave.
David Lee, I want to thank you for your time and for helping us to better understand the things we can do today to help our future generations of tomorrow. So I thank you for that.
You're welcome. Thanks so much for the time.
That was David Lee helping us to understand estate planning for generational wealth. To see the services David provides, go to his LinkedIn page at The David Joshua. If you like this interview, please do subscribe, share, and give it a thumbs up. All are greatly appreciated. Audio only versions of this interview can be found on iTunes and Spotify.